Exciting stuff on the Dr. ADHD 4DOF motion simulator. This is the Mendez Dr. ADHD seatbelt tensioner mod, the brainchild of George Menendez. Over on that Together We Build Motion Sims Discord server. And I've just helped George sort of refine this. And it works super nice. Really adds a level of immersion. And I'll explain all this in a second. Oh, baby, that felt great. Oh, I really got some serious tightening there. A little bit of traction loss. Okay, let's have a talk about this seatbelt tensioner and how it all works. Hey. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. What are we looking at here? Well, we're looking at a new modification for the Dr. ADHD 4DOF motion sim, a brainchild of Menendez over at the Together We Build Motion Sim Discord server. George, as he's known over there, came up with this concept, and all I've done is basically jump on board and help him refine it. He was having some issues with this working, with clearances between the mid frame and the top frame. What is this mod that you've just seen running? It's basically a mod that takes a 4-point seatbelt harness. So you have to have a racing seat that allows you to have a 4-point racing harness. It allows you to attach a 4-point racing harness to the mid frame and then utilise the fact that the top frame is on the surge rail system, and when the top frame surges forward on braking, lunges back on acceleration, we can tighten and loosen via a spring system the 4-point harness to add a level of immersion. Okay, so when you're braking, suddenly the 4-point harness is going to tighten on your body. When you accelerate, it's going to loosen the belts because you're being pushed back into the seat. There's automated seatbelt tensioners that do this with motion sims. They're quite expensive, and the fact of the matter is we have a surge axis that we can utilise with this mod. So that's what George's thinking was, and it was a brilliant bit of thinking actually. So all I've done is just basically make a bracket here that attaches to the mid frame, so then it clears the top frame when the top frame's moving fore and aft. That's all that needed to happen. So this has been set up so then it's basically the right offset when the top frame surge is all the way back on acceleration. Just got to make sure that when that top frame comes back, it doesn't interfere with the seat belts. That's all this bracket does. It just moves the seat belts back enough so then when the top frame comes back, it doesn't interfere with the seat belts. Let's talk about this bracket. I'm going to give you all the measurements for this now so then you can build this if you so desire. It's pretty simple really. You've built your skills up building the motion sim. This is going to be a piece of cake. Okay, let's start with the angle here that attaches the whole bracket to the mid frame, and it's done this way, guys, so then I didn't have to weld on my mid frame. All right, obviously my mid frame's all painted. I didn't want to be grinding paint off and welding this. You could indeed weld this if you were happy enough to have this permanent. But some of you guys out there might already be borderline on how large the sim is, and this is obviously adding a larger footprint. So you might like the opportunity to set it up like mine so you can remove it if you want to. Obviously this will be all painted now that it's made to match in and look nice. This is just in its raw concept, but as you can see it does work. So this piece of angle here is 30 by 30 by 2 mil thick, and it's 120 millimeters in length. I've drilled 4 holes into the angle, okay, first. Then I've used 4 8G 20 millimeter in length, so these guys, okay, Tech screws to fasten the bracket to the mid frame. We'll talk about this piece here while we're here. This is a bit of leftover 75 by 5 mil flat steel that was used in the front motor mount bracketing, etc. That is just cut at 165 millimeters in length. On the ends I've welded, because this was only fairly short, but it's all that I had lying around, because originally I was going to drill these hoop connectors through the plate, but welding them on the ends was approximately 250 times faster than drilling this and putting these through. These are a hoop end with a thread, so they can actually be drilled and then a nut put on to secure them. I've just welded them right on the end to get the maximum width I can out of this, and it works out well. So the centre of that hoop, of these hoops, are really right on the end of this 165 millimeter width of the 75 by 5 mil flat. What I've done also to add a little bit of extra bracing, this is just a little bit of television bracket for those wall mount television brackets that I butchered to make my keyboard stand on my sim. This is another piece of that left over. It just got welded from the top of the plate on the inside here down to the angle, just to give this some bracing. These hoops, guys, they're M6 in size. M6 hoops, you can get them from Bunnings Hardware. You'd probably get them from Home Depot in America. Not sure where you get them from in Europe, but they're an M6 hoop. Let's get the camera down so you can see the bracketing. This whole bracket system, really simple, guys. It's just a 90, all right, using some 25 by 25 by 1.6 mil thick box. All right, this section here that welds to the upright is 185 millimeters in length, 185, okay? This piece that's the upright is welded on the end of it, so it extends basically the overall length. Again, this is 25 by 25 by 1.6 box. That is, I did have this written down, but it's just as easy to measure it here. That's 110 millimeters high, and it's welded right to the center of the top plate, right in the center of this top plate that we talked about earlier. So it's just welded, just get a magnet, put it in, get a 90-degree offset there, and obviously it's welded over here into the angle. So it's welded into the center of the angle, welded to the upright here. They're the measurements. That's as simple as it is for building the bracket. Let's have a chat about the springs I've used, okay? So I've set this up on a spring system. You could use short, full rubber Oki straps if you wanted to. The springs, though, will just allow you to put decent preload on this, and obviously they'll keep you very taut. These are a trampoline spring, all right, left over from a trampoline that my kids had years ago that's gone. I kept a few of the springs. So these are trampoline springs. What I've done here to make this all so that it doesn't fall off when you're trying to get in the sim, the problem is that when these springs are just hanging, as you try and put the 4-point harness on, when they were just running through the hoops, they'd fall off. It was painful, okay? So there's a couple of things I've added to keep these in place so they can't come away from the belts when you're getting in the sim and putting the harness on. I've made it so then it's easier for the seat belts not to twist. So what I've done is I've grabbed a couple of M6 back-to-back swivel shackles, okay? D shackles if you like, but they're back-to-back and they can swivel. One goes into the hoop, as you can see. You'll just undo that. Into the hoop it goes. Now to stop the spring from coming off the shackle, what I've done, I'll undo this, is I've welded a washer, okay, into the spring. All right, now you may be able to get springs, because you guys might not have trampoline springs. You can get springs that have got basically a full hoop, okay? They've already got a full hoop or very close to it. So you wouldn't need to do this. If you've got high tension springs with a full hoop, you won't need to fart around and do this. I've had to do it though because this is the springs I was using. So I've welded a washer in there, okay, so then basically the spring can't come off the D-shackle when it goes loose. Once you're in the sim and, you've got the harness tensioned up, these are not going anywhere. It's just when you're getting in the sim and these are loose, you're pulling the seatbelt around the place to get the harness on, and these just fall off. They can easily fall off. What I've done to couple the spring at the top to the seatbelt is I've used a carabiner. These are 50mm by 5mm thick carabiners, and again, I've welded one end, so the small end I've welded onto the top of my spring. So then, again, you can just, easily clip these into the seatbelt. Seatbelt can't come out of the spring. It's done both sides. That's how the spring to seatbelt, spring to plate is secured, so it can't go anywhere. The swivel brackets simply allow a little bit of freedom so then we don't end up twisting the belt. M6 shackles, 50mm by 5mm thick carabiners. You'll need two of those and you'll need two swivel shackles. Let's have a look at the top section of this mechanism and how this works. Again, guys, this is just made up of stuff that I had lying around the shop, okay, lying around my workshop, but it works well. You could use pillar bearings with a rod. They would work really well. They'd give you sort of zero resistance. This has got a little bit of resistance, but because I've used a piece of my old shop vacuum cleaner pipe, right, this is really smooth. So even if this doesn't turn, the seat belts just slide over this anyway because it's a chrome finish. So it worked quite well. But I'll talk about how I built this. If you want to build the same, you'll just have to try and find pipe that works. You might not have a lazy old vacuum cleaner pipe lying around that you can use, and you might not have an inner piece of pipe that happens to fit with that. So I'm going to give you the spec for this anyway. You can let your brains go crazy and either build something like this, or like I said, you could buy a couple of pillar bearings, okay, that you can run a rod through and you can screw the rod into them. They've got Allen keys in them. So you just run this over a rod with pillar bearings. That would even work better because that would give you really good zero resistance for the belts to run over this. But I didn't have those. I was too lazy. I didn't want to drive out to the other side of town to buy them. So I just had a look around what I had in the workshop and I built it out of this, and this works. So what I've got here, guys, is my loyal and faithful 25 by 25 box, 1.6mm box, and it's welded on to this stem here, right? That's going inside the existing seat support to hold this in. It's then tech screwed on both sides so it can't move, all right? It's locked solid and stays horizontal or perpendicular, is that what that is, to where the belts slide over. And its height is adjustable, okay? So this stem, if you like, this piece of pipe, this is also 25 by 25, same material as this. So this sits inside there quite successfully. Let me give you the measurements of the pipe here first so you can find that. That's 22mm in diameter. It's 2mm thick and it's 180mm in length, all right? Goes all the way in down to here. That piece of pipe, I just got that from Bunnings. That's galvanised pipe that you can buy in the plumbing section at Bunnings, and it's the 22mm pipe. This box I've already talked about. You have to weld, let me get these out of the way. You need to weld that stem in the centre of that, okay? This box is 340mm in length. 340. That basically well and truly covers where the seat belts come through the slots in my seat, okay? Gives me a little bit of grace each side. Same with this one. That's why I've ended up building it 340 wide. The inner pipe that's inside this pipe that this rolls over, okay? That is 30mm in diameter. 30mm in diameter. It's also 340 long, so the same length as the box. And it's just basically put in level inside these. These are 35 by 70 by 5mm flat steel that I've cut out to be those dimensions to match basically what I'm using here with my inner pipe. That inner pipe, which is a 2mm thick piece of inner pipe is just welded, okay? It's welded onto this 35 by 70 by 5 bracket that's welded to the box. All right, I just got a magnet, put a 90 magnet on the box to weld this on square, both ends, and then that pipe has got enough separation from the box so it's not interfering. So then when we put a sleeve over, it can freely run over. So there's a little gap in there of about 5 millimeters between that box and where that will run. That's all you need to make sure you're done. This is cut shorter, okay? So then you can move this out of the way, obviously, because this has got to go on first. This has to be on that inner pipe before you weld it, obviously, otherwise you'll never get this on. So this is cut shorter. This is cut at 330 millimeters. Like I said, this is just some vacuum cleaner pipe from my old shop vac. It happens to be 32 millimeters in diameter, all right, and it's cut at 330 shorter, so then it can be moved out of the way for this to be welded on. Slid that way, this gets welded on. Bob's your uncle. So the lap sash part of the 4-point harness, obviously it comes through the bottom holes in the racing seat. I've located that 50 millimeters from the center of my rear seat spring heave post, okay, 50 millimeters back. Could be more, could be less. That works, okay, for what I've got. The problem is, of course, these seat belts have quite a large hole. They come with really chunky bolts because these are proper vehicle 4-point harness that I bought, and I'll talk about this in a second. It was pretty cheap. I got it off eBay if you need to grab one. So I've needed to use a washer here as well to retain the seat belt. Now what I've done is I've used 30 millimeter in length M6 bolts, and I've had to drill a 6.5 millimeter hole at that 50 millimeters back from the seat post there, okay, in the center of the angle here. Just a 6.5 millimeter hole is drilled so you can pop that bolt through. Now, I didn't have bolts with Nylex nuts, so what I've done to keep this loose, because this needs to be able to move, but without that nut being able to come off, I've Loctited it without it being tight. So I've tightened it so then this can be moved, Loctited it, and basically made my own Nylex nut. I would recommend that you try and get some M6 bolts, but get a Nylex nut, and then you won't have to Loctite it. Then you'll be able to tighten it, but without this being so tight that it can't move. You need this to be able to move around a little bit for when you're setting up. And that's just done both sides with that part of the seat belt to the top frame. That's into the top frame. Okay, so the 4-point harness I bought, I just got off eBay. That's the brand of it, PQY. Google is your friend. Just look up 4-point harness. Don't look for 4-point harness for sim racing. They cost a fortune. You don't need them. That one was 45 bucks. That is going to be more than enough for what I'm getting out of this. So it works well, guys. I think it's worth the few hours it's going to take you to whack that together. I would just elaborate, on the roller here, because this is what will differ from person to person. That's why I've made that stem that goes into the existing seat frame adjustable, so you can lift or drop that roller. I know George was saying that these have to come out horizontal. Well, that's impossible for me because my shoulders sit up here somewhere, okay? There's no way that belt can come horizontally out of that hole. It has to come down on an angle. The main thing is that this is set up so then the belt, wherever it comes down from you, whether you're short and it's going to come up like this, whether it ends up being level, that's great. Or if you're tall like me and it comes down like this, you just want to make sure you don't have any resistance in the hoop hole here where the belt comes through. So you adjust this basically when you're in the sim and everything's tightened up. You'll need someone to help you. Okay, you get in the sim, get the harness on, get it tight. It's got to be tight on your body. You've got to be pushed right back in your seat, and this has to be tightened really tight. And then you get someone to adjust the back of this to where you've got no resistance through the holes here, whether it's, however it is, depending on your size, all right? That's something that's important. So mine is set up like this because it ends up coming down like that, and it works great. Well, guys, maybe this is something that you're going to be interested in building yourself. You don't have to do it straight away. You could build your sim and have a bit of a crack with it, just with the surge axis as it is, but this really is really good. George, thanks, mate, for coming up with that idea. Great idea, man. It works really well, and it does add another level of immersion. And it feels really cool being strapped in to the sim with that 4-point harness anyway. Gives you a little bit more of a confident feeling about how you're driving. It actually helps you sort of feel a bit of the heave in the road and stuff like that a little bit more, because it's really positively locating you into the seat. So you pick up that heave and stuff through the spring heave system in my seat, even a little bit more, I reckon, because you're really strapped in hard. So, yep, I'd give this a crack, guys. When you're ready, pretty simple to build this. Till I see you in the next video, you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and take it easy out there.